The discovery of the mud on Lady Harrington's dress was a pivotal moment in the investigation. It was a small, seemingly insignificant detail, yet it was the first concrete piece of evidence that contradicted a suspect's testimony. It was a crack in the facade of lies and deception that surrounded Blackwood Manor. For Holmes, it was a signpost, pointing him in the right direction, and it imbued him with a renewed sense of urgency. The key to the entire affair, he was now convinced, lay within the pages of Alistair Finch's locked ledger. The problem, of course, was that the ledger was in the possession of Constable Davies, who had taken it back to the local station for safekeeping. Holmes knew that to leave the book in the hands of the bumbling constable would be a grave error. Davies lacked the intellect to understand its contents and the subtlety to protect it from the killer. If the murderer knew of the ledger's existence, and Holmes was certain they did, they would not hesitate to retrieve it, even if it meant committing another, more brutal crime. "We must retrieve that book, Watson," Holmes declared, his voice a low, determined hum. The life of Constable Davies and the successful resolution of this case may depend upon it. And so we embarked on a mission of delicate diplomacy. We traveled to the local constabulary, a small dreary building in the nearby village, where we found Constable Davies basking in the glow of his newfound importance. He was recounting the details of the case to a wide-eyed and clearly impressed junior officer, his voice booming with self-congratulation. Holmes approached him with an air of grave concern. "Constable," he said, his tone one of urgent confidentiality, "I must speak with you on a matter of the utmost importance. It concerns the ledger. I have reason to believe that it contains a cipher, a coded message that may be invisible to the untrained eye. To leave it unexamined would be to risk overlooking a vital clue. Furthermore, I have a growing suspicion that the killer may be aware of its existence and may make an attempt to secure it. The book, and anyone who possesses it, is in grave danger." Davies's face paled. The thought that he was a target had clearly not occurred to him. His self-importance evaporated, replaced by a comical expression of wide-eyed terror. "In danger!" he stammered. "What should I do?" "Allow me to examine it," Holmes said, his voice smooth and reassuring. "I have some small experience with ciphers and codes. If there is a hidden message, I will find it. It is our best hope of identifying the killer before they can strike again. I will, of course, return it to you as soon as my examination is complete. You may even remain with me while I work, to ensure the integrity of the evidence." The offer was too tempting for Davies to refuse. The prospect of being present at the moment of a great revelation, of sharing in the glory of solving the case, was more than his ego could resist. And so, after a brief token protest, he agreed. The ledger was brought forth, and we were given the use of a small, dusty office in which to conduct our examination. The scene that followed was a classic Holmesian tableau. The locked ledger lay on the desk, a silent, enigmatic challenge. Constable Davies sat in the corner, watching with a mixture of awe and bewilderment. I stood by the window, observing the master at work. And Holmes, in his element, paced the room, his mind a whirlwind of focused, analytical energy. He began by examining the lock, a small, intricate brass mechanism. He did not attempt to pick it, as I had expected. Instead, he produced a small leather-bound case from his pocket and, using a delicate set of instruments, took a wax impression of the keyhole. He then, to the astonishment of the constable, produced a small file and a set of blank keys, and, with a few minutes of deft, precise work, fashioned a key that slid smoothly into the lock. "There," he said with a small, satisfied smile. "The first barrier is overcome. Now for the true challenge." He opened the ledger. The pages were filled with Alistair Finch's neat, precise handwriting. At first glance, it appeared to be a simple botanical journal, filled with detailed observations of the various plants in the greenhouse. There were sketches of leaves and flowers, notes on soil composition, records of temperature and humidity. It was, to all appearances, the mundane record of a dedicated, if somewhat obsessive, scientist. But Holmes was not deceived. "It is a substitution cipher," he declared, after a few moments of intense scrutiny. "A clever one, but not impenetrable. See, Watson, the entries are too regular, the vocabulary too repetitive. He is using the language of botany as a mask, a way of hiding his true meaning in plain sight. The names of the plants, the measurements, the chemical formulas. They are not what they seem. They are symbols, a code." For the next hour, Holmes was a man possessed. He worked with a furious, almost manic intensity, his mind a blur of creative and analytical thought. He cross-referenced the entries with a small leather-bound book of his own, a personal encyclopedia of obscure knowledge. He scribbled notes on scraps of paper, his brow furrowed in concentration. He muttered to himself, a constant stream of disconnected words and phrases, the audible evidence of a mind working at the very limits of its capacity. And then, slowly, painstakingly, the code began to yield its secrets. The names of the plants were not names at all, but keys to a complex substitution algorithm. The measurements were not measurements, but references to page and line numbers in a specific book, a copy of which we had seen in Finch's room. The chemical formulas were not formulas, but a phonetic alphabet of his own invention. It was a brilliant, multi-layered cipher, a testament to the intellect of the man who had created it. And, as Holmes peeled back the layers, a terrible, chilling story began to emerge. The decoded text was a record of Finch's secret investigation. He had come to Blackwood Manor not merely to study the plants, but to investigate the legend of the crimson bloom. He had long suspected that the curse was not a supernatural phenomenon, but a cover for a series of murders that had taken place over several generations. His research had led him to a shocking discovery. The crimson bloom, Amaryllis sanguinea, was not a natural flower. It was a hybrid, a genetically engineered plant created by a previous resident of the manor, a disgraced botanist named Dr. Alistair Blackwood, who had been a contemporary of Lord Harrington's grandfather. Blackwood had been a brilliant but ruthless man, obsessed with the study of rare and exotic poisons. He had created the crimson bloom as the perfect weapon, a flower of breathtaking beauty that contained a deadly secret. The secret was a potent, fast-acting nerve agent, a poison that could be extracted from the flower's pollen. The poison was almost undetectable, leaving no trace in the victim's body. It could be administered in a variety of ways, inhaled, ingested, or absorbed through the skin. A single tiny scratch was all that was needed for the poison to enter the bloodstream, causing a massive heart seizure and death within minutes. The curse was, in fact, a series of cold, calculated murders, committed by a killer who possessed the knowledge to weaponize the flower's deadly secret. The ledger went on to detail Finch's own experiments. He had managed to extract a small sample of the poison and had been working on an antidote. He had also discovered that the formula for both the poison and the antidote were hidden somewhere in the manor, in a secret compartment known only to the descendants of Dr. Blackwood. And then came the most chilling entry of all. In the final pages of the ledger, Finch wrote of his growing suspicion that someone at the manor knew of his investigation. He had noticed things being moved in his room, his notes being disturbed. He felt that he was being watched. He had decided to confront Lord Harrington with his findings, to reveal the terrible secret that had haunted his family for generations. The entry was dated the day before his death. The final piece of the puzzle was a small cryptic note tucked into a pocket at the back of the ledger. It was a single line of text, written in a shaky, hurried hand. The serpent guards the key. When Holmes had finished his translation, a profound silence fell upon the room. Constable Davies sat in his chair, his face ashen, his eyes wide with a mixture of horror and disbelief. The story that had been revealed was so monstrous, so diabolical, that it seemed almost beyond comprehension. Holmes, however, was a picture of grim satisfaction. The ledger had confirmed his every suspicion. It had provided the motive, the weapon, and a chilling insight into the mind of the killer. It had also given him a new and even more urgent sense of purpose. The secret of the flower is tied to the Harrington family history, he said, his voice a low, resonant hum. The killer is not merely a greedy heir, but the guardian of a terrible legacy. They are protecting a secret that is worth a fortune, a weapon of unimaginable power. And they will not hesitate to kill again to keep it safe. He turned to me, his eyes burning with a fierce, unholy light. The game has changed, Watson, he said. We are no longer just hunting a killer. We are in a race against time. We must find the formula for the antidote before the killer can use the poison again. And we must unravel the final cryptic clue. The serpent guards the key. The answer to this puzzle, I am convinced, will lead us to the killer's identity. He rose to his feet, his tall frame seeming to fill the small, dusty office. Constable, he said, his voice now sharp and commanding, you will return to the manor, and you will tell no one of what we have discovered. You will act as if the ledger contained nothing of importance. Our only advantage is that the killer believes their secret is safe. We must maintain that illusion at all costs. With that, he strode out of the room, leaving me and the terrified constable to grapple with the terrible knowledge that we now possessed. The botanist's ledger had been opened, and the full monstrous nature of the evil that resided at Blackwood Manor had been revealed. The stakes were higher than ever, and the game was about to enter its most dangerous and deadly phase.